Music is literally the soul of this city. It's the soul of the residents. It's an expressive town. I think sometimes Philadelphia, we feel like we're always the underdog because we're in between Washington, D.C. and New York City. But Philadelphia has a lot to offer.
It's just an incredible place for music.
We see it in our churches, we see it in our jazz history.
Any kind of music has some kind of something here in Philadelphia. If you can't find something you like, something's wrong with you.
And it is also the poorest, largest city in the United States.
The music programs in the public schools are suffering. It's kind of like an inside joke in the school district of Philadelphia. When something's broken, it's always like, yeah, well, welcome to Philly.
I remember instruments just like literally falling apart in a student's hands.
I had a trumpet where the valves, they always had a problem with it and they always stick in the middle of the songs.
The E, D, and all that, they weren't working right.
But most of these pianos, when you click a key, it sticks. And when it sticks, like, you can't play it.
One of the worst thing that I would see as an educator is we'd hand a beginning student an instrument and they can't produce a sound or something's not working and they just think it's their fault.
That's a result of underfunding and things getting cut. So it's a shame, but that's the reality.
The first time I came across broken instruments was in a closed school, meaning that was a school that had been closed by the school district in 2013, and they had been stockpiling instruments into the gymnasium. And that, in many respects, became the tip of an iceberg that just got bigger and bigger. And that's when I kind of felt that there's something here that we need to do something about.
When something starts to look bad and look like it can't function, and people take even less care of it. For me, it's like a proxy for many of the communities that are in Philadelphia. At some point, it was vibrant. At some point, it was exciting to behold. At some point, it was able to do what it was made to do. And somehow, along the way, probably for a lot of different reasons, that kind of compounded on each other, it no longer became functionable.
The opportunity with Symphony for Broken Orchestra was to actually put the lack of support for music and arts education back into the spotlight. It only, in an odd way, made sense to think of broken instruments as actually a whole new universe of sound that has never been tapped.
We have a problem. We need to make people aware of it, and we raised money to fix the problem.
A lot of people want to see things change, and a lot of people haven't made it happen. So I'm up for it. Let's give this a shot. Let's put all these broken instruments in front of the public and try to play them and try to make it be meaningful and try to fix this problem.
When I heard that there was going to be this project with outside funding that was bringing music back into the schools, that was restoring broken instruments, and was going to call attention on a national level to what was happening to the crisis in our educational system, I thought, yes, absolutely.
We're assembling a volunteer orchestra from ages 10 to 80, full of people who want to support instrumental music in the school district because I have 1,000 instruments that are broken and have the capacity to be repaired with this project.
So one of the things I thought was so beautiful about this project was that the people who were playing it looked very much like the people who were listening to it. It really seemed like people were making this project for each other, and that's really the way our culture should be working.
We were all skeptical about what it was actually going to be like.
This was more about finding something awesome on your instrument, where that could be a note or, not.
You just make sound on them however you can, using your own internal pitchfork, finding what resonates, finding what feels the best.
That is a beautiful and subjective way to approach and appreciate music. And that's what had to be asked of each of the 400 musicians that performed at Symphony for Broken Orchestra, was take this thing Now you make something beautiful with it.
The most impressed moment from the night was walking into the venue itself and finally seeing what we had talked about in words come to life. And the band and the orchestra members came walking through the door. It elevated everybody's feeling in the room that we were about to be part of something.
Where I was sitting there, the first thing you see the people them walking in, footsteps stepping all around me. All of a sudden, you see different instrument. I said, but wait, what that? That can't play nothing, man.
I kind of knew that there were going to be a lot of people present, but I had no idea how many people.
It was like a sea of black shirts with all these different instruments, and everybody was together.
There was people from all over the place, from all different walks of life, from all different parts of the city.
There was a father, there was his 2 kids, there was a retired school teacher, there was a visual artist. It was like one of those ooh-ah moments, like ooh, ah, one of those kind of moments.
And you felt the unification at that moment of each individual musician's attempt at a collective beauty.
The fact that these instruments got together, organized, performed, stated their case, and then inspired thousands of people to donate, that is an inspirational story to me. And to be a part of that is really, really exciting.
In fact, it was a really galvanizing moment, I think, for our city and in support of the school district.
You don't get to really do something that means that much to everybody who was there so often.
And it just really hit home for me that this had come from a child, and it was going back to a real child. And I don't know who has it now. I don't know where it is. I hope it's somewhere good. I hope that somebody is loving that cello as much as I did.
The project had been a success. You know, people came together, they played this music, the community came together, and also by the time the concert happened, we knew that we would have the money to repair all of the instruments. And so that meant that the entire life cycle of the piece was a success.
1,500 instruments are back in schools.
It's kind of like Christmas morning when you give a new instrument to a kid.
I was at a school in South Philly, dropping off a bass that had been fixed through the project. And this bass, it was really pretty busted up. So it took the repair professionals longer to repair it than a lot of the other instruments. So this was sort of a latecomer. So the majority of the fixed instruments had already been returned back to the schools. And so I'm showing up with this, clunky clunk of a bass, getting it up the steps through the door, down into the auditorium where the kids are in music class, they're practicing. And so I say hi to the music teacher. I recognize them from being a part of the project previously. I say, hey, here's this bass. And he says, oh, well, why don't you say something to the students, you did this, you should sort of like take something here. And so I said, hi, everybody. I say, hi, Mr. Blackson, all this kind of stuff. It was really sweet. And I said, so this is a bass that's coming back to your school because someone cared enough to adopt it. And we'd like to give it back to you now so you guys can continue playing it. And I said, you'll know that it's part of the project because it has this little tag on it. And this little kid says oh, I have that tag on my instrument too. And it was just a really nice moment where all the kids looked at their instruments and looked at their cases, and they started seeing that the majority of the instruments that they had, that they were playing with were all part of the project. And it was that moment that, wow, this is a whole class. So that was nice. That could play because they couldn't play before.
A lot of conversations started after the performance. One was, where did these instruments come from? 2, I didn't know we had so many instruments in the district. 3, how many students are in music education? And all these things started to be unearthed.
You know, this is a metaphor for something much bigger that we're dealing with in our community, which is broken.
Philadelphia is not the only city that has this issue.
And I know in Michigan, there's a problem. I know in Cleveland, there's a problem.
It's all of our responsibility to take that inspirational moment and bring it back into the sort of mundane everyday. And I think that's where the incredibly hard challenge is.
This needs to be the inception. It needs to be the do-over. It needs to be the start. I think that it's great if you're going to use it as the beginning of something else, as the beginning of a real, true dedication to our students, to our community, and to art.
This is something that really should be a given. We should not have to have extraordinary measures to do such simple fixes. So I look at music as being one of the last opportunities we have to save our society.
It's just to show us something that no matter what is broken, you can fix it.